Okay, everybody, this is the second video I'm making today because I realized I left out one thing. Actually, it's actually better that this is a separate video because you're probably wondering, well, because I was showing before how do users work, how does the new schema work, and it is in some of the documentation there on how this works. But I think it's important to understand exactly what happens when you do this. So let's click on all. I want to find, okay, so let's just grab any record that has not been enabled yet. So, for people who already have their portals running, you're not going to run into this right away unless you're going to be enabling some more people. But if you're on a new account, especially, or you're disabled somebody and you want to get it re-enabled, here's what you're going to be looking at. First of all, you can always go into the edit little applet here, and you can edit information. Okay, so it doesn't require that the account is enabled. If you just want to go in here and peek in and tweak the names, whatever like that. You'll notice, by the way, that I don't expose anymore the email address, and that's because the email address is kind of irrelevant when it comes to a customer, because we now have this new schema where you have customer users, and it has nothing to do at all whatsoever with the customer account. The email doesn't need to match. It doesn't even really care what the email is on the customer account. That strictly exists in QuickBooks, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't apply at all anymore in the portal. It's the user's email address that matters, not the customer account. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Now, you can just click anywhere on this record, or you can click the little add. It does the same thing. So if I want to enable Duke's Basketball Camp, let's just click there. Now this is totally new. Before, it would just do it, unless, of course, there was some kind of duplicate with the email address and all that. So let me explain, because this is probably going to be a little bit confusing to people. Let me explain what's going on with this little applet. And this is going to be your sort of official, what do you want to call it? Tutorial, right? Primer on how to do this. For most accounts, you don't have to do anything different. You're just going to click here and probably just be able to click assign and enable. And optionally, you can say to send the invite right away, or even turn on billing automation right away. You don't have to do it right in this case, but you can if you want to. It's just a shortcut, these options. All right, set all invoices as sent is there so that if it's a new customer and you already have billing automation enabled, and you're going to enable here, you probably want to set that to yes. Otherwise, you're going to have all of their invoices are going to start getting sent out right away. So in most cases, you're enabling a new customer. You probably want to turn this on so that it automatically does that for you. All right, let's go forward here and look at what are we looking at. All right, so what this is telling me is, hey, I found a email address that already matches this customer, and it's this email address here, and it says the source is a portal match. That means it came from the customer record, right? So it doesn't exist yet. It's not a user in the portal yet. It doesn't exist at all. And you may or may not want to use this. You probably do in most cases want to use this address, and so you just click assign. Now, it might be a case where you'd be like, no, I actually want to assign this to a user I already know about. So I can go up here and I can put in a user or type. This is very similar to the other search. And I can say I want to assign it to this guy, John. So now it's telling me, all right, John is there. It's actually already a user, and he has access to these 3 accounts already. And you might say, yep, that's the one I want. It's already checked off. And I can click assign and enable. Or I can change my mind, select this one, and say, no, I'm really going to just give this to Duke's Basketball. So let's do that, right? Let's do that. Let's assign it to this one, but after the fact, we'll add John as an afterthought. But let's make this one the primary. So I'll go ahead and assign it, and now it's enabled. So if I go to this and I want to go directly to manage the users, so you'll see that this Peter Dukes is the primary. Billing notifications is already turned on because they are the primary of the default. In fact, if I try to turn it off, it will let me do that. Okay, I thought it wouldn't let me do that. I'm curious if it really did. Let's see here. Whoops. Let's turn that off and refresh. Yeah, okay, that's kind of a, you probably don't want that. You always, I think you always want someone to be getting notifications. I'm surprised it's letting me do that. We have to fix that, but this is not a showstopper issue. So now I said what I want to do is also add that John user. I want to also have them on, but they're not the primary, which is fine, but I'm going to give them admin and I'm going to save it. And we'll give them billing notification access. So that's it. Now you'll see that this is the primary, which is what we wanted. And this user has all the permissions. They have admin, user view. And if I was to go here and log in as this user, you noticed before they had 3 other accounts, right? Well, now they should have 4. Alright, so there. And by the way, if I believe it is the case that the last account you assign the user to becomes their new default, which you can change. So right now it's this one, but they have access to these other 3. So let's go back. Let me just show you that really fast. So we're on, let's see, which account was that again? Actually, I can just, yeah, here it is. If we look at the users, okay, so what I want to do is, a quick easy shortcut is go to manage global user record is a quick way to get to them. And it'll take you to the customer user screen and automatically filters for their record. So here's they've got access to these 4 accounts. And I see what the reason why we got. Okay, I'm wrong on that, by the way. Sorry about that. The default customer did not change. It stayed with this address. The reason why it logged us in to Duke's basketball camp is because we were on that record, right? So we were here, and then I said log in as this customer right here. Because I'm in the context of this particular customer, that's the one it set for initially, okay? If I'm here, in other words, there's no context, I'm not asking for anything specific, and I say log in now, it's going to default to this one. Watch. Okay, so there, it logged me into the default. Alright, hopefully that makes sense. And whenever this user logs in as their own account, it's always going to take them to their default company. Unless it is unless it was linked from an email. In other words, it's a bill payment type thing, and then it will just take them to whatever account that it applies to. Alright, so you can see this pretty powerful feature. I mean, and if I want to change that, and I want to say no, I want to make this the primary, I'll set the user's default, excuse me. And I'll say make that the default for the user, so that when that user logs in, that's the first account they see. Let's just test that. Log in, and we should get into Duke's basketball camp. But I can still, switch around like this. Right? So that's all good. And I'm wondering, again, some of these things I just don't recall the exact thing that will happen, but let's just say we go here to that one and I remove them. So remove their access, which I did. And let's refresh this. So I see that it didn't set a default, and it probably should. And as I'm making this video, I'm going to make a note. So that if you remove a user from a customer account that is their default, choose a new default. We'll just guess it, but in this case, I'm gonna set it back like that. All right. I don't think it's a big deal. I think on the authentication, it will know what to do. I think like it'll just try to log in to the first one. I'll try to get that fix in before we go live, But if you run into this issue, same thing. If you run into an issue where the customer is saying, I can't log in, it's not saying I don't have access to anything, just go to this view right here and just make sure that there's a check mark that one of their accounts is their default. So we'll get it fixed. We'll make sure that that's working out. But okay, so that's that. Let me go back over to the customer account view. And if I want to disable this one, yeah, that's a good question. Is how do you disable? When you disable, a couple things happen. Obviously, it removes any users that were assigned to it, and then it also clears out some transaction history logs, customer profile info, stored credit cards, and things like that. I mean, once you disable it, it's basically going back to its default state. So you don't really want to disable it unless you really have no intention of giving them access anymore, because it will clear out all these settings. So we'll do it, and now it's back to disabled. Okay. So just keep that in mind when you're disabling it. It will clear out everything, all the transaction history, everything. All right. Now, I think that really is the scope of this video. I just wanted to show about enabling and disabling accounts and how that's different now and actually improved. So if you run into any problems, let me know. Open a support ticket and we'll get on it.